Hello, I'm Dexter, and today I will be introducing and explaining my experimental and experience with the elixir 10 days. So, as defined in its documentation, elixir is a dynamic and functional language for building scalable and maintainable applications. I chose elixir due to its dynamic nature, which makes it a little bit closer to what I'm familiar with in Python and other programming languages. In this video, I'll cover my first week studying this functional programming language. So, here's the hello world of elixir. It starts with io.puts hello world, and you might see something that feels off with elixir, and that is all data being immutable. So unlike lists in Python where you can add objects freely, data is immutable in elixir, which means that it can't change. So a lot of object-oriented ideas don't work, but elixir substitutes them with a lot more elegant, but I think it was a lot harder to learn alternatives. And the essential part of functional programming is pattern matching, because variable initializations are done using the equals operation, which I think you're all familiar with, and in Elixir it is called as a match operator. So we have 5 essential types. All of them look, I think, pretty familiar to us, except atoms. Atoms are variables that have the same value as their name. So this atom of atom is just the name atom. So this might seem very counterintuitive, but it is a real feature in Elixir and a very commonly used one at that. So we have 2 container types in Elixir. We have the list and the tuple type. So what the list type does different is it is implemented as a linked list, which makes getting a length of this list a linear operation. But tuples, on the other hand, are stored contiguously, and that makes them having fixed size, which makes adding elements more memory expensive. While lists, you can add elements in a constant time operation. We can see them in actions here. Here we have a new list defining it, 1, 4, 5. And then here we do an operation of addition. We add the list 0 to list 1, 4, 5. And this will be a constant time operation because we're just attaching 0 to 1. Unlike how it would be the tuple, it would be actually a linear operation because we would be moving each one space to the right. So here we see the element to the tuple list. We have an atom. We can actually make lists and tuples of different elements. So we can have an element of type integer, an element of type boolean, even an element of type string in just one tuple or list. And here we just access one element, and this is a constant time operation, unlike linked lists, which would be linear if you were taking the last element in a list. So I hope this really covers what the difference is between lists and tuples and how you use them in Elixir. Okay, for conditionals, we have 3 main conditionals, 3 main ways of implementing them. And first off, it's the case, for the case statement. These case statements and match statements are being implemented in Python, and it is an idea that is really taken from functional programming languages. And we can see here we define x as 5 and y as 3, and then here we're going to be comparing x to each of our cases. So here we compare x to 4, and if x and 4 match, this will be returned if x was 4. So this is the case where x is equal to 4. The match operation gets us true, and then we return this. And then the next one, we use a pin here. This is the pin operator. We do this to not let x be matched to y and make x equal to y. So this allows y to not be changed, so we're going to be comparing y to 3, and then that's not going to return. And then finally we have the last case, which is y only. This will always return because it will match x to y, and then y will be equal to 5. So you always need to not forget the pin operator. And then we end our case. This is the syntax for conditionals, which you have a do and an end at the end. So here we have the standard if-else control flow, but I wanted to showcase an interesting feature of Elixir, and that is its variable scoping. Here we initialize x as 5, and then we check if x is equal to 5. We will do the following. And we add 1 to x, we make x equal to x plus 1, but here when we print it, we get as a 6 as expected. But if we go outside of the conditional, x returns back to 5. So anything you've done inside a conditional or inside a conditional, yes, it returns back to its original state as if it never happened outside of it. This is how variables are scoped in Elixir, which was truly an off-putting feature to me learning Elixir in the beginning. So finally, we have the last construct of conditionals in Elixir. We have the cond, which is the else if of Elixir, truly. You just do cond do, and then you place each statement that you want to check if it's true, and we'll go through all of them. So here we have x plus y, that's going to be equal to 7, so that's not going to return. And then this one, 3 times 4 is going to be equal to 12, so it's not going to return also. And then here finally, this will return, which is going to be yes exactly. And cond just goes through them and returns the first one. So if we had a true after this, it wouldn't return true. It wouldn't return the return value of true. So this is how conditional cond works. And a point I wanted to make is that cond and case return errors when they end without returning anything. So for cond, you want to always use a true at the end to catch anything, kind of like a net. And for case, you would do an underscore and then do a arrow in the return value. So really, I hope that I explained the basic constructs of Elixir, and I'm sorry that I could not make this any longer, because going into functions would be a very long affair, and it would be beyond the scope of this video. And I really do hope to continue this series, maybe after a month, so that I can actually have a project to show for my learning, because although I've written this code myself, it is not very like industry standard code, or it doesn't even serve a purpose. But this always happens when you learn a language, and you must learn it by doing. And I tried to do this by writing all the code in the video. So, as always, I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And I think for next video, I will look into duck typing, goose typing, and the differences between them.